Welcome to my channel, Advanced Learners Studio.
Today's podcast, English Listening Practice podcast, topic name is 30 plus C1 level vocabulary on art.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately. Today's deep dive is, well, it's a mission. We want to equip you with the kind of specialized language you need to go from just, liking a piece of art to really talking about it with confidence. High-level critique, historical analysis, that sort of thing.
Exactly. We're not just listing words here.
No, definitely not a basic review. We're looking at a curated stack of C1 level terms. This is the language critics, curators, even collectors use.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is that hitting that C1 level in English means getting beyond just describing what you see. It's about understanding the why.
The nuance.
Right, the essence maybe. Why does this piece cost so much? Why use oil instead of watercolor? Why did, say, Impressionism pop up when it did?
Yeah.
We've pulled together these concepts aiming to give you those aha moments. The kind you need for, advanced discussions, essays, maybe even exams, turning appreciation into actual expertise. Right. And to make sure we cover all this ground properly, because it is quite expansive, we've grouped these 30 plus terms thematically.
Makes sense.
We'll kick off with the art market think, high stakes, commerce, value, integrity. Then we'll get into the physical stuff, materials, techniques, how art is actually made.
The act of creation itself.
Precisely. That leads us nicely into section 3. The language for describing aesthetics, for formal critique, crucial stuff. And finally, we'll tie it all together with history, the major movements that shaped art over the century.
A good roadmap.
So let's start where the stakes feel highest. The money, the market. Okay, when we talk value in art, especially, big auction houses, everything hinges on one basic question, doesn't it? Is it real?
Absolutely. Which brings us straight to our first key term, authentic.
Authentic, meaning genuine, original.
Bona fide. It's the bedrock of value. If a piece isn't authentic, forget about serious financial worth, no matter how nice it looks.
And figuring that out isn't simple.
No way. It's complex. Museum experts, for instance, they don't just glance at a signature. They're doing forensic analysis, looking at pigments, the canvas, the wood grain, and critically, provenance.
Provenance. That's a great C1 term. For our listeners, it basically means the documented ownership history, right? Why is that paper trail so vital for proving authenticity?
Because that chain of custody is everything. If you can trace a sculpture, say, directly back to the artist's studio through documented sales collections, that unbroken line, that provenance, verifies its origin and massively boosts its value.
And the reverse is true too.
Definitely. Even a piece that looks spot on might be deemed suspect, maybe even worthless in the high-end market if its provenance is shaky or has gaps. Collectors hunting for those really rare ancient artifacts, they're essentially seeking guaranteed authenticity backed by a rock-solid ownership history.
Okay, so that's authentic. What about the other side of that coin, the reproduction? Looks like the original maybe, but fails that core test.
Right. A reproduction is a copy, a duplicate, a replica. Now, the market treats these very differently depending on the context.
How so?
Well, on one hand, you've got mass market stuff. Think museum gift shops selling posters or good quality prints. That makes famous art accessible, which is great.
Democratizes it a bit.
Exactly.
Right.
But the quality of reproductions today can be so high, it creates a real danger zone. Sophisticated forgeries.
The idea that a skilled forger could make something good enough to fool experts, even for a while, that's pretty scary for collectors.
It is. It keeps verification teams on their toes, constantly refining their methods. But there's also a positive side of reproduction we shouldn't forget, especially in conservation.
Interesting. How does that work?
Digital reproduction, for instance. It plays a vital role. You can create a super high-resolution archival copy of a fragile, original, maybe an old oil painting that's starting to degrade.
So the original can be safely stored.
Precisely. While the public gets to see and study the excellent digital copy. So you get access and preservation. The monetary value of the reproduction is low, sure, but its intellectual or conservation value, that can be immense.
Okay, so authenticity and provenance set this incredibly high bar. Let's shift focus slightly to the skill involved, starting with a word that can be tricky, amateur.
Yeah, this one's nuanced, like you say, C1 level for sure. We often use amateur dismissively in everyday life.
Right, like that looks a bit amateurish.
Exactly. But in art theory, it simply means non-professional, novice level, maybe the dilettante. Someone who perhaps lacks the polished precision you'd expect from a full-time paid professional. The key is realizing skill isn't the only measure of artistic merit.
I think about raw charm sometimes. An amateur sketch might lack perfect shading, sure, but it could capture an energy, a spontaneity.
That's a great way to put it, that essence of a moment. Highly polished work can sometimes lose that. Think about Van Gogh's early stuff.
Before the famous vibrant colors.
Right. His early drawings, maybe lacking that confident line or bold color, might have been seen as amateurish by the academic painters of his day. But the potential was there.
So the journey matters.
The journey from amateur to master often involves refining technique, yes. But importantly, many modern galleries intentionally include amateur work in shows. Open submissions, for example.
Why do they do that?
To bring in diversity. To contrast that raw passion maybe with highly honed professional technique, it broadens the conversation about what we value in art.
Okay, makes sense. Now let's talk about the money engine, the structures that support artists, whether amateur or master. We need to define auction house.
Right. The auction house, it's the main bidding venue, the high-stakes sales gallery. Think Sotheby's Christie's. They're the global stage for the art market, especially for record-breaking modern and contemporary art sales.
But they do more than just bang the gavel, right?
Oh, much more. A huge part of their role is the pre-sale work. Verifying authenticity again, checking provenance, building detailed catalogs. It's all about building trust with those high net worth buyers.
They're gatekeepers, in a way, ensuring that when a collector spends millions, they're getting what they think they're getting.
Absolutely, they have to be. The whole process relies on that trust. But money aside, art history shows us that art needs support to flourish. Which brings us to the patron.
Right. A patron isn't just a buyer. They're more like a sponsor, a benefactor. Someone who supports the arts financially.
Yes. And historically, patronage was the dominant model. Think Florence, the Renaissance.
Medici family.
A classic example. Historical patrons like the Medici didn't just buy finished art. They actively commissioned masterpieces.
Yeah.
They funded artists, workshops.
So they shaped the art being made.
Profoundly. And it wasn't just about personal taste. For someone like the Medici, patronage was also a tool. It demonstrated wealth, culture, even political power. Their legacies intertwined with the art they funded.
That link between money, power, and art is fascinating. Does that still exist today?
The structure's different now, less centralized maybe, but the vital role of the patron, absolutely. Modern patrons can be individuals, yes, but also corporations, foundations, governments providing grants.
Supporting emerging artists.
Crucially, providing stipends, funding residencies. That support helps artists bridge that gap, maybe from amateur or semi-professional to a sustainable career. It's the financial lifeblood that keeps the whole arts ecosystem healthy and innovative.
Okay, let's shift gears now. Away from the market, more towards the studio. The tangible stuff, the materials, the processes artists actually use. Let's start with sculpture, three-dimensional art, some great C1 technical terms here.
Definitely. With sculpture, the material is just so fundamental. Two key ones to know are bronze and ceramic.
Bronze, that's the metal, right?
Usually an alloy, copper and tin mostly.
Yeah.
It's famous for its strength, its durability. Artists love it for outdoor pieces, public monuments, things that need to last.
You see bronze statues everywhere, commemorating historical figures or events. They really hold up to the elements.
They do. And that durability means museums can display these massive bronze works, sometimes spanning centuries, ancient to modern. It's reliable stuff. Technique-wise, casting is key, often using the lost wax method that's Sire Purdue, if you want the fancy term.
Lost wax.
Yeah, it's an ancient, pretty intricate casting process. It lets sculptors capture incredible detail from their original model, usually clay or wax, into the final durable bronze. It takes immense skill.
Okay. And contrasting with heavy, durable bronze, you mentioned ceramic.
Right. Ceramic refers to pottery, earthenware.
Yeah.
Basically, things made from clay that's been fired at very high temperatures.
Baked in a kiln.
Exactly. The creation process involves the key action, to mold the clay, shaping it often on a potter's wheel, sometimes by hand, or using actual molds. Molding is fundamental.
And ceramics tell stories, don't they, historically?
Oh, absolutely. Ancient ceramics. They're archaeological treasures. The shapes, the glazes, the painted decorations, they give us incredible insights into past cultures. Daily life, trade, technology, beliefs. Much more than just pots.
And the artist doing this work, whether in clay or stone, is the sculptor.
Yes. The sculptor, the carver, the modeler, the chiseler.
And the key action, especially with stone like marble, is to carve.
Right. To carve, to shape by cutting away material. Chiseling, engraving. It requires not just artistry, but real physical effort and a deep understanding of the material. Think of Michelangelo carving David from a single block of marble.
Bringing life out of stone.
That's the idea, respecting the stone's integrity while transforming it. Intense physical technique applied to hard, resistant stuff.
Okay, let's move to 2D, painting. Let's contrast two classic media, canvas and watercolor.
Good pairing. Canvas is that stretched fabric, usually cotton or linen, that acts as the base, especially for oil painting.
Oil painting, the big one, historically, Renaissance masters and all that.
Absolutely. Oil paint allows for incredible richness and depth. A key technique is layering. It's not just slapping paint on. It involves things like glazing.
Glazing.
Applying thin, almost translucent layers of oil paint one over another. It builds up color slowly, creating luminosity and really deep, vibrant tones. That's how those old masters got that glow.
Right, I see. And watercolor is totally different.
Completely different discipline. Watercolor, or aquarelle, uses pigments suspended in a water-based solution. It's known for its transparency, its lightness, its speed sometimes.
Often used for landscapes, right? Misty effects.
Exactly. Capturing fleeting moments, light effects. Layering is crucial here too, but it's about building up delicate washes, thin applications of diluted color. You have to be careful though. Unlike oil, where you can layer thickly, too many watercolor layers can just turn muddy.
So it requires a different kind of control.
Very much so. Control of the water is almost as important as control of the pigment. It demands precision and planning.
Before any paint hits the canvas or paper, though, the artist needs their palette.
Ah yes, the palette, the mixing board, the color tray. Seems simple, but it's central to the whole process.
It's where the color decisions happen.
It's where color theory happens in practice. Mixing primaries to get secondaries, testing shades. A painter's palette during a project can almost be a work of art in itself, showing their whole color scheme.
And that idea has gone digital now, too.
Oh, absolutely. Digital palettes in software like Photoshop or Procreate simulate the whole thing. You can mix, adjust, save colors instantly. Very efficient.
Less messy, too, I imagine.
Definitely less messy. But whether it's wood or pixels, the palette is where the chromatic choices are made.
Okay, let's think bigger now. Scale. When art leaves the frame and goes onto a building, that's a mural, right?
Yes, mural, wall art, or sometimes fresco, which is specifically painting on wet plaster.
Yeah.
Murals are powerful. They can transform public spaces, turn a dingy alley into an outdoor gallery.
Make art accessible to everyone.
Exactly. And historically, murals and frescoes were vital for storytelling. Think Renaissance churches telling Bible stories, or Roman villas depicting myths, often for people who couldn't read.
And today, we see a lot of community murals.
Yes, that collaborative aspect is really strong now. Community projects where people work together to create something meaningful for their neighborhood. It emphasizes the social power of art.
One last term in this section, linking the artist and the human subject, to pose.
Right. To pose, meaning to sit or stand still for an artist or photographer holding a particular posture.
It sounds passive, but it's not always, is it?
Not at all. It's often an act of collaboration. The artist directs the model, hold your head like this, lean forward slightly. Sculptors might ask for dynamic poses to capture muscle tension. Portrait painters might need someone to pose elegantly, maybe uncomfortably, for hours.
So the model is really part of the creative process.
The crucial part. They bridge that gap between the artist's idea and the final representation. An often overlooked collaborator, really.
Okay, this section feels like the real core for C1 learners, moving beyond just what it is to how we talk about its effect, its structure, its meaning. Let's start with visual tricks, creating illusions on a flat surface.
We have to begin with depth.
Depth, like making a flat painting look three-dimensional.
Exactly. Perspective, dimensionality, profundity. It's all about creating that illusion of space receding into the picture. Artists use various tricks with line, color, and especially light and shadow to achieve this. It draws you in.
And the main technique for that is to shade.
Yes, to shade, to tint, shadow, or grade. It's a careful application of darker tones to suggest volume and form. Think about how shading turns a simple circle into a sphere.
Makes it look solid.
Right. Renaissance artists mastered this with chiaroscuro, that dramatic contrast between light and dark. In drawing, you see techniques like cross-hatching,
Drawing lots of little lines.
intersecting parallel lines. The denser the lines, the darker the shadow. It builds up tone and creates that 3D effect very effectively, even without color. Digital tools now have sophisticated shading brushes too.
Okay, so depth and shading create the form. What about the surface quality? The finish.
The finish, that's the final layer. A coating, a varnish, a polish. And the choice of finish is really deliberate. It's both aesthetic and practical.
How so?
Aesthetically, a glossy finish on wood, say, might enhance the grain, make it reflective. A matte finish on a photo or painting might give a softer, more subtle feel, reduce glare.
And practically.
Protection. Varnish protects a painting from dirt and minor scratches. A good finish on an outdoor sculpture helps it resist weathering, UV damage. It preserves the work.
Makes sense. Let's switch to subject matter. A common one, but maybe deeper than it looks. Still life.
Still life. An arrangement of inanimate objects. Fruits, flowers, books, skulls, jugs. The classic subjects.
Often seems like practice for artists, right? Learning observation.
It definitely serves that purpose, honing skills and rendering texture, light, form without a moving model. But historically, still life, especially in, say, 17th century Dutch painting, went way beyond practice.
How do you mean?
Many were vanitas paintings, from the Latin for vanity. These still lifes were packed with symbolism: a guttering candle, a skull, wilting flowers, an hourglass. All reminders of the shortness of life, the inevitability of death, the futility of earthly pleasures.
Wow. So much more than just a bowl of food.
Much more. Deeply symbolic and moralizing, not just decorative arrangements.
Whether it's a still life or a landscape, a key goal is often harmony, right?
Yes, harmony. Achieving balance, unity, accord within the composition. It's about making sure all the elements, colors, lines, shapes, textures work together pleasingly. They feel like they belong together.
It sounds good, basically.
It looks and feels coherent, yes. Art critiques often focus heavily on whether a piece achieves this. Does the color palette create harmony? Is the composition balanced? Artists use principles like the rule of thirds or specific color relationships to help create that sense of visual harmony. It guides the eye smoothly.
Another technique, almost the opposite of complex harmony, is the silhouette.
Right. The silhouette, just the outline, the shape against a lighter background, usually dark on light.
Very simple, but powerful.
Extremely evocative because of its simplicity. It reduces the subject to its essential form. Great for capturing an elegant profile in portraiture or those dramatic effects like trees against a sunset.
Very graphic.
Very graphic. And you see it used all the time in design, too. Logos, fashion sketches. It's about instant recognition of form.
Okay, let's think about the purpose behind the art. If something is primarily made just to look nice, to adorn a space, we call it decorative.
Decorative, exactly. Ornamental, aesthetic, embellishing. The key distinction is that its main job is to be attractive, rather than, say, functional or deeply conceptual.
Like patterned wallpaper or fancy trim on furniture.
Perfect examples. Intricate patterns on a vase, elaborate plasterwork on a ceiling. The decorative arts often emphasize beauty, craftsmanship, ornamentation. Think of the Victorian era, lots of highly decorative objects and interiors.
And the contrast to that is art that carries a deeper meaning. Symbolic art.
Precisely. Symbolic, emblematic, representative, metaphorical. This is absolutely crucial for C1 analysis. Recognizing symbolism means digging deeper.
Going beyond the surface.
Yes. The dove is symbolic of peace. That's a common one. But it gets complex. A locked door in a painting might symbolize missed opportunity. Chains might symbolize oppression or, if broken, liberation.
So you have to interpret the clues.
You do. Contemporary art, especially installation art, is often heavily symbolic. It uses objects and arrangements to provoke thought about social issues, psychological states.
Yeah.
It demands interpretation from the viewer.
And how we interpret it depends on our own background experiences, our viewpoint.
Absolutely. Viewpoint, perspective, stance, angle. This term works on multiple levels. It's the physical angle you view an artwork from, sure, but more importantly, it's the intellectual or critical perspective you bring.
My viewpoint might be different from yours.
Exactly. And that's where interesting debates in art criticism come from different viewpoints clashing or illuminating each other.
Sure.
Also, the artist's own viewpoint is key. Are they challenging norms, offering a critique of society? That viewpoint often drives artistic innovation and the start of new movements. Understanding viewpoint lets you analyze why someone interprets art the way they do.
Okay, last section. Let's put all this into historical context by looking at some major art movements. These are like big shifts in ideas and styles, starting around the late 18th, early 19th century with Romanticism.
Right. Romanticism. This was a huge reaction against the Enlightenment's focus on pure reason and order. Romanticism championed emotion, feeling, intuition, individual.
And nature, right. Big, wild nature.
Absolutely central.
Yeah.
Celebrating the sublime power of nature, its beauty, yes, but also its terrifying, awe-inspiring grandeur. Think dramatic landscapes, storms at sea.
Where human feeling in response to nature is paramount.
Precisely. Subjective experience becomes the source of truth, not cold logic. It was a massive shift away from the earlier neoclassicism, which valued historical accuracy and classical forms. Romanticism blew open the doors for emotion in painting, literature, music.
Okay. Then, mid-19th century, another big change. Impressionism.
Impressionism. If Romanticism was about inner feeling, Impressionism was about outer perception specifically, light and color.
Capturing a fleeting moment.
Exactly, atmospheric painting. The key idea was to paint what the eye sees in a particular instant under specific light conditions. This often meant leaving the studio, painting outdoors on plein air.
Like Monet and his water lilies or haystacks.
The classic examples. They weren't trying to paint the ideal haystack. They were painting how that haystack looked at that moment with that light hitting it, often using rapid, broken brushstrokes to capture that immediacy.
It looks less finished than older painting styles.
Deliberately so. It was revolutionary. It shifted focus from line and form to light or color and how they interact. Impressionism is still fundamental for teaching color theory and how we perceive the world visually.
But around the same time, wasn't there another movement pushing for truth, but in a different way? Realism.
Yes, realism, defined by naturalism, verisimilitude aiming for lifelike, accurate representation. But the crucial difference from, say, neoclassicism was their subject matter.
What did they paint?
Everyday life, often the hard lives, the struggles of ordinary people, the working class. They rejected the heroic myth of Romanticism and the idealized scenes of academic art.
So depicting things as they really were, even if unpleasant.
Exactly. Serving as social commentary. Artists like Gustave Courbet painted peasants, stonebreakers, laborers, giving them a scale and seriousness previously reserved for historical or religious figures. It was quite radical.
Bringing the lowly into high art.
You could say that. And realism had a huge impact beyond painting, influencing literature, photography, towards documenting reality, warts and all.
Okay, fast forward to the early 20th century. Things get even more radical with modernism.
Modernism. This is a huge umbrella term, really, covering lots of styles. But the core idea was a decisive break from the past, from classical forms, traditional perspective, realistic representation.
Throwing out the rule book.
Pretty much. It was avant-garde, driven by innovation, reflecting the huge changes happening in society, industrialization, new technologies, new psychological theories. Think abstraction, non-representational art.
Picasso. Cubism.
Picasso is a key figure, embodying that spirit of shattering old forms and inventing new ways of seeing. Modernism wasn't just painting, it transformed architecture to think function over ornament, clean lines, new materials, a complete rejection of historical styles.
And finally, tapping into those new psychological ideas, we get surrealism.
Surrealism emerged in the 1920s, heavily influenced by Freud and psychoanalysis. Dreamlike art focused on the subconscious mind.
Like Dali's melting clocks.
The absolute iconic image. Surrealism aimed to unlock the creativity of the unconscious by juxtaposing bizarre, unrelated things, putting ordinary objects in impossible scenarios.
Creating illogical, dreamlike scenes.
Exactly. To bypass rational thought and tap into deeper psychic realities, its influence was massive painting, sculpture, but also hugely important in film, literature, creating new ways to explore abstract ideas and challenge our sense of reality.
Wow, what an incredible journey through all that vocabulary and history. We've really gone from the market practicalities of the auction house right through to the deep feelings of Romanticism, the weirdness of surrealism. Hopefully this gives you, our listeners, a really solid lexicon to sculpt your English analysis skills at that C1 level.
Yeah, we've tried to provide the tools, the terms for materials, techniques, aesthetics, history that you need to move beyond just saying, I like it, into really informed, insightful analysis.
Which actually raises a good final thought, doesn't it?
It does. For you, the learner, think about the last artwork you encountered. Maybe a painting, a sculpture, even a building. Now, with this vocabulary, how would you critique it?
Go beyond just liking it.
Right. Will you analyze the finish? Discuss the use of bronze, or maybe dig into its deeper meaning? Is it primarily decorative, or does it have powerful symbolic elements? Does the whole composition achieve harmony? Using these words is the key to unlocking that deeper analysis.
Well, since this deep dive has hopefully sparked your inner art critic and boosted your linguistic mastery, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Until next time.
Today's deep dive is really a mission to sharpen your critical eye. We want to equip you, the listener, with that specialized C1 vocabulary.
Yeah.
The kind you need to move beyond just, liking a piece of art.
Right.
To actually discussing it confidently, getting into high-level critique and real historical analysis.
Exactly. And look, this isn't just about grabbing a thesaurus. Getting to that C1 level means getting past describing what you see and digging into the why. Why does that piece fetch 8 figures at auction? Or, why did something as radical as Impressionism just explode when it did?
It's about the nuance.
It's nuance, context, the essence of it all.
So we've pulled together a huge stack of sources here. The idea is to give you those essential conceptual tools, turning basic appreciation into something more like genuine expertise.
And to make sure we cover the ground. I mean, from ancient bronze all the way to Dolly's melting clocks, we've broken this down. 4 main areas.
Makes sense. Keeps it manageable.
We'll kick off where the money is, basically. The high-stakes art market, value, integrity, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Then we'll get our hands dirty, metaphorically speaking, into the studio, the actual materials and techniques.
Got it. And after that?
Then we tackle the language you need for formal critique, aesthetics, how to talk about what you're seeing in a structured way.
And finally,
we put it all in context. A quick tour through the major historical movements that really shook things up and redefined art over the centuries.
Sounds good. Let's start at the money then, the market. And that absolute baseline requirement, a piece has to be authentic.
Authenticity, yeah, that's the bedrock. It's got to be genuine, original, the real deal.
Bona fide.
Right. Without that, you're not actually selling valuable art, are you? You're selling maybe very clever decoration. The value is just fundamentally tied to its origin.
But proving it isn't always straightforward. I mean, we know experts look at pigments, the canvas, forensic stuff.
Sure, the material science is part of it.
But the real gatekeeper, the thing that really defends against fraud in the high-end market, is provenance, isn't it?
Provenance, absolutely. This is such a crucial term for any serious art discussion. It's the documented ownership history.
The paper trail?
That's it. The chain of custody. It's everything. If you can trace a piece, directly back to the artist's studio through an unbroken line of sales, transfers, documents.
And it's solid.
That provenance verifies its origin, and frankly, its value can skyrocket.
And it's fascinating how, shaky provenance can just tank the value, right? Even for a beautiful piece.
Oh, absolutely. If there's a gap in that history.
A missing decade or something.
Yeah. Collectors, especially the ones hunting for really rare artifacts, they'll just walk away. Too much risk, it's a forgery, or maybe stolen.
Which brings us to forgery. The threat is real, especially now with advanced reproduction techniques.
Right. Reproduction just means a copy, a duplicate. And it has its good side. Mass market prints make famous works accessible, democratizes art in a way.
But when the reproduction is too good.
Exactly. When it's technically perfect, intended to deceive, then it crosses that line into sophisticated forgery. That's the danger zone.
That's where the big money problems start. But let's not just focus on the negative side of reproduction.
Yeah.
It's also vital for conservation, isn't it?
Huge role. Yeah. Think about a fragile old oil painting that's, degrading.
Like art.
They can create these incredibly high-resolution archival copies, perfect digital reproductions.
So people can still study it.
Exactly. Scholars, the public, they get access while the fragile original is kept safe. The intellectual value of that copy is immense, even if the monetary value is, minimal.
Okay, interesting pivot. Let's move from, science and fraud to the human skill involved. The word amateur, we tend to use it negatively.
In everyday chat, yeah. Amateur means novice, maybe not very skilled.
But in art critique, it's more neutral, right? Just non-professional.
Exactly. Non-professional, dilettante. It distinguishes it from the, let's say, polished precision you expect from a master professional.
And that's a key C1 nuance, isn't it? Skill isn't the only measure of artistic merit.
Precisely. Sometimes an amateur work, maybe an early sketch by someone famous, it might lack perfect academic shading, but it captures a kind of
rawness.
Raw charm, yeah. Or a spontaneity that highly refined professional work sometimes smooths over.
Like Van Gogh's early drawings. They were maybe a bit awkward technically by academic standards.
Right. Dismissed by the establishment, perhaps.
But that raw energy was the start of his genius. And modern galleries often show that kind of work now, don't they? For that contrast.
They do, for diversity. To show that passion alongside the maybe colder, honed technique.
So who supports that journey? From maybe amateur beginnings to becoming a master. Historically, it was the patron.
The patron. Yeah. Yes, we need to define that clearly. A sponsor, a benefactor.
The Medici in Renaissance Florence are the classic example, aren't they?
The ultimate example. They weren't just buying paintings off the shelf. They commissioned masterpieces. They funded entire workshops.
So they were directing the art.
Absolutely. Patronage was a massive display of wealth, influence, political power.
And that system, in a way, still underpins the art world.
It's still the financial lifeblood. Today's patrons might be individuals, sure, but also big corporations, foundations.
Giving out grants and stipends.
Exactly, residencies. Without that financial support structure, that whole ecosystem just grinds to a halt.
And speaking of money and high stakes, before we move on, we have to mention the main stage for these big transactions, the auction house.
Right, the auction house. Your Sotheby's, your Christie's, that's the global arena for the high-stakes bidding.
But they do more than just bang a gavel.
Oh, much more. Their crucial role is often behind the scenes. They act as gatekeepers. They're the ones verifying authenticity, checking that provenance before the sale. Building trust with those high net worth buyers who rely on the auction house, having done that meticulous homework.
Okay, that gives us the economic frame. Let's shift now,
Yeah.
move away from the high finance and into the studio. The physical stuff, materials, techniques.
Let's do it. Starting with sculpture. 3 dimensions.
Makes sense.
We really need to contrast 2 major materials here. Bronze and ceramic.
Okay, bronze first. That's the metal.
Durable metal alloy, yeah. Copper and tin, usually. Perfect for public monuments, things meant to last.
And the technique is casting.
Primarily casting, yes. Often using that really intricate lost wax method. Sire Purdue.
Why is that method so important?
Because it allows the sculptor to capture incredibly fine detail from their original model, maybe wax or clay, and translate that delicate form into lasting monumental metal.
So the choice of bronze wasn't just about toughness.
Not at all. The complexity and cost of the lost wax process itself signaled status. It was a way to broadcast wealth and power through the very medium.
But now contrast that with ceramic. That's clay-based.
Clay-based, yeah.
Yeah.
Earthenware, stoneware, porcelain, fired in a kiln. The key action here is to mold the clay, shaping it, often by hand or on a potter's wheel.
And ceramics are more fragile.
Much more fragile than bronze, obviously, but that fragility makes them archaeological gold mines.
Because they break and survive in fragments.
Exactly. Those fragments, their shapes, the painted decorations, they become invaluable records of ancient trade routes, daily life, rituals, beliefs, insights you might not get otherwise.
Right. And what about carving stone? Like marble?
When a sculptor works with stone, the verb is to carve. It's subtractive. You're physically cutting away material, usually with chisels.
Hard work.
Immense physical effort, yeah.
Yeah.
Combined with incredible artistry. You can't add stone back if you make a mistake. Think of Michelangelo carving David.
Freeing the figure from the block.
Precisely. It's this intense dialogue between technique and resistant matter to create lifelike form.
Okay, moving to 2D. Painting. Let's compare oil on canvas with watercolor.
Good contrast. The canvas, usually cotton or linen fabric stretched tight, is the classic support for oil painting. And oil is famous for its richness, its depth.
How is that depth achieved? You mentioned glazing.
Glazing is key, especially for that old master look. It involves applying thin, almost transparent layers of oil paint, one over the other, letting each dry.
Building it up slowly.
Exactly. This slow layering builds up the color intensity and creates this amazing internal luminosity, this deep, vibrant tone, that famous glow of Renaissance portraits that often comes from light interacting with those multiple glaze layers.
Wow. Okay, now watercolor or aquarelle. Completely different beast, right?
Radically different. It's water-based pigment. Its defining features are transparency, lightness, often speed. The technique relies on building up delicate washes of color.
Washes.
Thin layers of diluted pigment. But watercolor demands incredible control and planning. Why planning?
Because it's transparent. You can't easily paint over mistakes like you can with opaque oil paint. Too many layers, too much fiddling, and the colors turn muddy, lose their clarity. Managing the water flow is almost as crucial as managing the pigment itself.
So
Tricky. So whether it's washes or glazes, all the color mixing and choices happen on the palette, right?
the palette, yes. Seems simple, just the board where the artist mixes paints, but it's fundamental. It's where color theory meets practice.
Where the chromatic decisions are made.
Exactly. Where primaries become secondaries, where shades are tested. It's the sort of birthplace of the painting's color life.
Let's scale up from the palette. Art on walls. We often call it a mural.
Right, and if it's specifically paint applied onto wet plaster, the term is fresco.
Fresco, like the Sistine Chapel ceiling.
Classic example. Historically, frescoes were vital for storytelling, especially to largely illiterate populations, covering huge areas.
But murals still have that public function today.
Absolutely. Community projects, transforming public spaces, allowing artists to work at an enormous scale. It's still a powerful form.
One last term that connects the artist and the artwork's subject, to pose.
Ah, yes, posing. We often think of it as passive, just sitting still.
But it's more than that.
It's really an act of collaboration. The model isn't just a prop, they're a crucial partner. They bridge the artist's idea and the final image, sometimes holding difficult, uncomfortable positions for hours on end. Often overlooked, but essential.
Okay, moving into our third section, aesthetics and formal analysis. This is where that C1 critique really happens. Let's start with illusion. How do artists create depth on a flat surface?
Depth, yeah. That sense of dimensionality that the scene recedes into space. It's not just about perspective lines, though those help. Critically, it's about light and shadow.
And the technique for that is to shade.
To shade, exactly. The careful application of darker tones to suggest volume, roundness, form. Think of that dramatic use of light and dark perfected in the Renaissance and Baroque periods.
Chiaroscuro.
Chiaroscuro, exactly, strong contrasts. Or in drawing and printmaking, you talk about cross-hatching.
Those intersecting lines.
Right, parallel lines that intersect. The denser the cross-hatching, the darker the tone appears, creating that 3D effect without actually blending paint. Very skillful.
Once the shading is done, the piece is finished. But then there's the finish.
Yes, the actual finish, the final coating. Varnish, maybe a polish. It serves two main purposes.
Aesthetic and practical.
Exactly. Aesthetically, it dictates the surface quality. Is it glossy, reflecting light and making colors pop? Or is it matte, absorbing light for a softer look?
And practically.
Protection. The varnish layer protects the paint underneath from dirt, dust, air pollution, even minor scratches. It literally preserves the work from weathering over time.
Let's switch to subject matter. Still life. Seems straightforward arrangements of objects.
Inanimate objects, yeah.
Right.
Flowers, fruit, skulls, books. But historically, especially in, say, 17th century Dutch painting, it was often way more than just practice painting objects.
This is where it gets symbolic.
Hugely symbolic.
Sure.
This is a major conceptual leap for analysis. Many of those still lifes were actually vanitas paintings.
Vanitas, Latin for vanity.
Exactly. They were packed with symbolism. A skull, obviously representing death. An hourglass or a guttering candle for the passage of time. Wilting flowers for decay. Half-eaten food for earthly pleasures being fleeting.
Wow. So they weren't just pretty pictures.
Not at all. They were moralizing visual sermons, reminders about the shortness of life, the futility of chasing worldly goods. Understanding that turns simple description into deep analysis. You realize these objects were far from just decorative.
They were heavily symbolic.
Precisely. And that distinction, decorative versus symbolic, is absolutely crucial for C1 level critique.
So decorative art's main job is just to look good, ornamental, like patterned wallpaper.
Pretty much. Its primary function is aesthetic appeal, to adorn a space.
Whereas symbolic art uses objects or images as emblems.
Metaphors. Exactly. The object stands in for a bigger idea. A locked door might symbolize a missed opportunity. Broken chains could mean liberation. Analyzing that symbolism is what takes you beyond just saying, I like it.
Okay. Whether it's decorative or symbolic, a key goal in composition is often harmony, right?
Harmony, yes. Achieving a sense of balance, unity, accord within the picture. Making sure all the elements, the colors, the lines, the shapes work together pleasingly. Coherence, yeah. Feeling balanced, often guided by principles like the rule of thirds, but it's more of an intuitive sense sometimes.
And kind of the opposite of complex harmony, in a way, is the power of the silhouette.
Interesting way to put it. Yes, the silhouette, that dark outline of a shape against a lighter background.
Reduces things to basic.
It reduces the subject to its essential, most recognizable form. It's incredibly powerful. Think about portrait profiles or logos. When the silhouette alone communicates the identity or the drama, that's strong composition.
And finally, in this section, how we interpret all this depends hugely on our viewpoint.
Viewpoint. Works on two levels, really.
Okay.
First, there's the simple physical angle. Where are you standing when you look at the sculpture or painting? That changes things.
Sure.
But second, and much more important for critique, is the intellectual or critical perspective you bring as the viewer. Your background, your knowledge, your biases.
And different viewpoints lead to different interpretations.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what drives interesting debates in art criticism. And the artist's viewpoint is critical too, of course. Are they trying to challenge norms, offer a new perspective? That intellectual viewpoint often fuels the whole purpose of the art.
Right. Okay, let's tie this all together now in our final section. Putting this vocabulary into historical context with some major art movements, starting around, the late 18th century with Romanticism?
Romanticism, yeah. It was this big reaction against the Enlightenment's obsession with logic and cold reason.
So what did it champion instead?
Emotion. Intuition, subjectivity, and crucially, the sublime power of nature.
Sublime meaning.
Not just pretty, but awe-inspiring, even terrifyingly grand. Think dramatic landscapes, shipwrecks, huge storms, vast mountain ranges. It was about feeling, awe, wildness, breaking away from those strict neoclassical rules.
Okay, that emphasis on feeling sort of paved the way for the mid- and 19th century and Impressionism, didn't it? Though in a different way.
In a very different way. If Romanticism was about inner feeling, Impressionism was much more about outer perception, capturing momentary sensations.
Light and color.
Exactly. How light affects color, capturing the fleeting moment, often of modern life. They famously painted en plein air.
Outdoors.
Outdoors, yeah, using rapid, broken brushstrokes. The goal wasn't necessarily a perfect, realistic line, but capturing the shimmering effect of light and atmosphere, a fundamental shift in focus.
But happening almost at the same time was realism. Different focus again.
Completely different focus, though contemporary. While Impressionists chased light, realists aimed for verisimilitude, lifelike accuracy. But, and this is key, they aimed it at a new subject matter.
Not mythology or rich patrons.
No. The hard lives, the struggles, the dignity of ordinary people, peasants, laborers.
Like Courbet.
Courbet's a perfect example. Painting stonebreakers or peasants with the same scale and seriousness previously reserved for gods or kings. It was often powerful social commentary, showing life as it really was, unvarnished.
That focus on reality, even harsh reality, must have paved the way for even bigger breaks later on. Modernism in the early 20th century.
Absolutely. Modernism was the avant-garde, a decisive, often shocking break from past traditions, throwing out the rule book on things like perspective, realistic representation.
Embracing abstraction.
Embracing innovation, abstraction, new materials, new ideas. Think Picasso and Cubism, shattering forms. Kandinsky moving into pure abstraction. And modernism wasn't just painting, it revolutionized architecture too. Function over ornament, a whole new aesthetic.
And finally, getting weirder. Surrealism in the 1920s. Influenced by Freud.
Deeply influenced by Freud and psychology, yes. Surrealism dove headfirst into the subconscious mind.
Dreams and the irrational.
Exactly. Dreamlike imagery, bizarre juxtapositions, illogical scenes. Dali's melting clocks are the absolute iconic example. The aim was to bypass rational thought, tap into deeper psychic truths, challenge reality itself. Kind of wild stuff.
That was quite a journey.
Yeah.
Seriously. We went from the cold, hard cash reality of provenance in the auction house through the studio techniques, like glazing,
The smell of turpentine.
all the way to the subconscious oddness of surrealism. Hopefully this really gives you, the listener, that lexicon, that toolkit to analyze art at a more sophisticated C1 level.
Yeah, that was the goal. Not just defining words in isolation, but showing how they connect. You know, how a patron's choice to fund a bronze using casting relates to the final sculpture's composition and maybe its harmony.
Or how a movement like Romanticism, focusing on emotion, actually set the stage for later abstraction.
Exactly. You should now have the tools for a much more informed, insightful analysis.
Which actually brings us neatly to our final thought, something for you to take away and chew on.
Right. Don't just let this vocabulary sit there. Think about the very last artwork you encountered. Could be anything, a painting you saw online, a sculpture in a park, even a striking modern building you walked past. Now, try to critique it using these terms. Was it primarily decorative? Or did it have powerful symbolic elements, maybe connecting to a historical movement we discussed? Did the composition achieve harmony, or did it feel deliberately jarring?
Use the words.
Use the words. That's the immediate key. Applying this vocabulary is how you start unlocking that deeper analysis for yourself.